Hello, everyone, and good evening. I mentioned an email I sent to you. I wanted to take a moment really to talk about an issue that I experienced recently, and that most change agents or internal consultants, if you will, or managers who are trying to drive major positive changes will experience, and that issue is confidentiality. In your line of work, in our line of work, if you're a change agent, if you're an internal consultant, if you're an external consultant, if you're just a manager trying to drive positive change and you're going to have a lot of conversations with people, if you're going to be using any type of instrumentation, if you're going to be collecting data, confidentiality is absolutely essential. Even something as simple as a survey monkey and collecting data from a survey monkey, you need to make sure that people are protected, that you don't breach the confidentiality. What happened to me, and this is kind of interesting. It's happened now a couple of times where I've either been doing surveys or interviews with people, individual interviews and collecting data, and I've had senior management come in and say, "Hey, wait a minute, we would like to know what this person said. We would like to see this person's data." And in every case, I've said, no, you can't do that. That would be an absolute breach of integrity. On my part, I always believe it would be an ethical failure on my part to ever breach the conversations I've had with somebody, or to ever breach the results of data that I have collected in whatever format that I've collected in. However, there are people out there, as you start to make entry into an organization, if you're contracted to change something and you're going to be required to have interviews, one-on-one interviews with people, if you're using various instruments to collect data, survey instruments, etc., you must recognize that for you to be successful, it's important that your credibility stands above reproach, that people know that when you give your word and you say that this is going to be a confidential process, that they understand that you will never ever breach that. And in fact, confidential absolutely means confidential. And if they believe that about you, they are going to be far more open and willing to share. They'll be far more willing to talk about issues, talk about problems that they're having, talk about even solutions that they would put forward, talk about senior managers who may not be doing what they're supposed to be doing, talk about maybe even the people that have contracted you to make the intervention. And they will do that because of the bond of trust that they have with you, that you will absolutely maintain confidentiality of the conversation or confidentiality of the data. This means a couple of things. Number one, you need to say this up front when you're working with a group of people, that whatever I collect, whatever I hear, it's kept confidential. You'll consolidate the data. You will present the data in a consolidated format that no one ever can say, okay, I know where that came from. And the term for that is cleaning the data. You may have to clean the data, and there may be some data that you can't present, because if you present the data, people are going to know where it came from. So that data you're going to have to leave out and find another way to get to the particular issue. But you cannot present data that will cast aspersions on the person that has said it. You have to protect that individual at all cost. So you need to clean the data, present consolidated data only, and distill it down into what you think are the critical issues to be addressed. That's simple. That it may be simple, but it's hard to do. There are several occasions in my career where I walked away and I left a lot of money on the table because I would not compromise my personal ethics when a senior manager came to me and said, "We want to know who said that," or "We want to see the data on all these directors." I had one project I was working on. I was working with 33 directors, and I was their coach. And this is after a 360 process that they went through. I didn't do the process. I came in to clean up the issues. What had happened is the chairman of this particular company called the 33 managers in and proceeded to whiplash or tongue lash the entire group with the exception of one. The chairman actually said, "There's only one senior director in here that's worth their salt, that got good grades," and he happened to name that person. How do you think the other 32 people felt? You know, I don't think they felt that good. So my job was to come in and help the 33, even the one good one, help 33 develop an individual development plan based on their 360 data and based on the interviews I'm having. Before I set out for this particular assignment, I had an interview with the VP of HR, the Director of Training, and the Director of Organizational Development. And in those conversations I had with them, I said that my interviews are going to be absolutely confidential. I will distill down any global issues, and I will present global issues and give you my recommendations on those global issues. But I will not and cannot divulge the individual conversations I've had with people. Well, what happened is shortly thereafter, the Vice President of Manufacturing and they had a new plant HR person, wanted me to list the weaknesses of all of the directors. And they wanted me to rank order the directors, who I thought were the top performers down to who I thought were the bottom performers. It's almost like the GE model where they rank all their managers, and of course the bottom 10% get fired. Well, that's what their intent. Their intent was to rank order, profile. They wanted the weakness profile, not the strengths, but they wanted their weakness profile. And they were going to get rid of people. And I said, I can't do that. And we went back and forth several times. And I finally said, I will not do it. And they said, okay, if you don't do it, we're not going to pay you. And I said, fine, you don't have to pay me, but I am not breaching the confidentiality of these conversations. I left, and I left a lot of money on the table, but I left. I would not do what they wanted me to do. And that's the situation that I think you're going to have to face at some point in your career if you embrace this change agent role. Is that you're going to be challenged, and people are going to say, I want to know who said this. I want to know, I want to see so-and-so's data. We're not satisfied with his performance or her performance, and we think we want to move on them. You can't do that unless that's your assignment. If your assignment is to go in there and evaluate the key managers and come back with recommendations of who needs to stay, who needs to fire, that's different. But also in that role, you're not going to get a lot of openness, and a lot of information is going to be coming your way. So I thought I'd share that with you in the context that we're winding down in the course here, and since I just experienced this again in my career, I needed to share that with you. So thank you, and have a wonderful day. Bye bye.